Hello, I'm James Wilson. People who steal are usually poor and unemployed. People in prison are usually poor and unemployed. It is only natural to think, therefore, that if we could just reduce poverty and unemployment, we could reduce crime. And that may be true. But so far, scholars have not been able to prove that unemployment causes crime, and society has not found it easy to devise programs that reduce crime by providing jobs. This is what happened to the unemployment rate since 1960. It dropped steadily in the 60s, then rose from time to time in the 1970s. This is what happened to the murder rate since 1960, and this is what happened to the robbery rate during the same period. What this shows is that crime was rising rapidly in the 1960s. At the same time, unemployment was falling, and crime leveled off in the late 1970s when unemployment was rising. This may not be the whole story, however. Professor Philip Cook has studied the connection between crime and the economy. Phil, let me ask you, is there any real connection between general economic conditions and the crime rate?
Well, I believe there is for some types of crime, and so that I'll give a typical academic answer, it depends. First of all, I'd say that for the crime of homicide, there is no detectable link or relationship between the business cycle on the one hand and the homicide rate on the other. It just appears that the homicide rate, for whatever reason, is immune to business conditions. On the other hand, there's the crimes of burglary and robbery, the typical street crimes, are fairly sensitive to the boom and bust cycle that we've experienced.
You say they're fairly sensitive, and people might understand that as a plausible connection, but how much of the changes in the burglary rate or the robbery rate can we attribute to changes in economic conditions?
Well, by my estimates, I've found that over the last 50 years, you can expect to see that during a recession, you'll get about a 6% increase in burglary, maybe a 9% increase in robbery over what you would have had otherwise. But that doesn't add up to very much compared to the enormous increase in robbery and burglary that occurred, for example, between 1965 and 1975.
So this huge increase in burglary and robbery has to have been caused by many other factors, that the economic conditions could only have been one, possibly only a minor part of it. Is that a fair summary?
That certainly is a fair summary, yes.
Are there any crimes that increase during times of prosperity?
Well, my own work suggests that auto theft increases during times of prosperity. It appears to be a highly professional crime these days, and it simply pays better during boom times than it does during recessions. That would be my explanation anyway. It's certainly clear enough that it does increase during good times.
Does it make sense for society to embrace as a crime reduction strategy a major effort to drive down the unemployment rate, even at the risk of some increase in inflation? Is that a sound strategy?
I think that there are that there is no evidence that suggests that the crime issue should be one of the leading issues in that debate. Of course, the debate goes on all of the time, and there are powerful concerns about how we should be managing the economy that have to do simply with the welfare of the public. And the crime issue appears to me to be a minor one.
So we have a complex relationship between the economy and crime. It's not an easy one to understand, and it may not account for enough of the crime problem, so that crime reduction probably shouldn't be the major reason for dealing with economic uncertainty and recession. Well, let's take a closer look at this by focusing on people who are actually unemployed and who have actually